Hello, sweet friends, and welcome to Style Thoughts by Rita. Today, I'm making this little video to talk to you about pleasure in your style self-expression. I think that there are many different positive feelings that we associate with looking good, and many of these feelings are based on things that are kind of external. So, for example, the satisfaction of feeling like you put together an outfit that's really good, kind of the joy of feeling that you are really expressing, the satisfaction, pleasure of being seen by other people in a positive way, feeling that you are like attractive or that you are fitting in or whatever. And we tend to really fixate or the feeling that your body looks like in a socially appropriate or approvable or attractive way. And I think that all of these are completely valid things for us to care about. But I also think that we tend to care very much about these things and sometimes overlook some other aspects of dressing. So I wanted to really make this video to talk to you about like sensory pleasure in dressing and your physical enjoyment of your outfits. This is just based on some comment I had on my previous video and a bit of chats I've been having with some people, where I realized that this perspective on actually the physical enjoyment of your dress is something that we maybe don't think enough about. And I just wanted to first talk to you a little bit about the general concept of pleasure in clothing. And then I wanted to offer you, a list of 7 different things I could think of that are pleasurable from clothing and how I think you can kind of gain that form of pleasure through your clothes. And then I was really curious to hear about like which of these things you can relate to yourself in your clothing. Okay. So the concept of just general like pleasure in the body, I would say this is one of my one of the things I am really orient my life around, kind of highlighting and growing the pleasure of being alive, right? So pleasure is just our birthright because it is about the physical enjoyment of actually being alive. So it is about receiving sensory sensations, that's touch, sound, whatever, and actually experiencing those sensations from the inside and enjoying those sensations, right? It's nothing more or less complicated than that. It's really just a mode of being, a mode of taking in sensory stimulus and that feeling where it just feels good to you. And that's your birthright, right? As a human being with a body, you have the right to experience pleasure. And I think also in our hypersexualized culture, I think the concept of pleasure gets really tied up with like sex and pleasure is when you're having intercourse with a person or I guess maybe sometimes you're allowed to have like pleasure for like a really tasty like meal. But I think pleasure, is so much more encompassing than that. It is just really this being present in the body and seeing that as a really valuable kind of resource in your everyday life, that ability to just enjoy the actual act of being present in your physical body. And for me, that's been a really big journey because I have had so much difficult experiences that led for me to be very disconnected from my body. And so over the last years, as I've become so much more connected to my body, it's just a constant goal for me to experience that more and more. And for me, that definitely has been a huge facet of my fashion, is finding ways in which I enjoy my fashion, not just from this, how I look, how I present myself, but really from that, I like being, my body enjoys being in the clothes I have. And by that, I mean the parts of my body that I wear in the clothes, my eyes, I like taking it in. I like the feeling on my skin. I like the way the shape of my body feels when I move. And if you haven't thought about this so much explicitly, you realize, I think, as I go through this list, that you probably do actually take into account these different forms of kind of pleasure and enjoyment. And maybe you just haven't thought about it in this very explicit way. And I think thinking about it from this much more kind of explicit, this is like a legitimate purpose to have in your dressing, and it's something that you can dress to accomplish, I think can just help you kind of highlight and grow the amount of pleasure you're experiencing in your life, because I think there are very few of us in this world who are enjoying all the pleasure like in our everyday life that we truly deserve to enjoy. And it can just be as simple as using your clothes as like a resource and as a tool in that enjoyment process. So the first category of pleasure I came up with is the pleasure of being held. So for me, so different examples of this can just be wearing clothes that is like tight, wearing clothes that is really fitted to the body, wearing clothing that has like lacing, belts, tight belts, corsets, or like shaping undergarments, for example, wearing tights on your legs, wearing snug shoes on your feet, wearing kind of like bralettes that really hold in like your chest to the body. So all of these are different examples of that can give you this like sensation of really being held. And I know a lot of people don't like the tightness, and it doesn't mean you don't like to be held. So just let's nuance this a bit. But I do think that a big reason why we like this is because there's just something about the feeling of really being contained. So for example, like on the, if you really like to wear things that are very structured on the waist, I mean, the stomach is a very exposed area of the body. It's just like physically a very vulnerable place. So it can be like really nice to be like held in. For example, with like shaping undergarments, it's just like a feeling of like safety, and the same with the chest when you wear really like undergarments that really kind of like press into your body. Yeah, and I mean, I also think this is actually an element of why people enjoy like athleisure. Of course, in some ways it's just easy and convenient, but it's also just, I don't know, it's something nice about being squeezed. So I definitely used to really prefer to wear like tights on my legs most of the time. So I would wear a lot of skirts, and I would wear tights even, when it's not super hot during the summer, because I just really enjoyed that sensory need. And I didn't think about it that way at the time. Or also like tighter clothes. So I think like back then in that stage of my life, I really had this really big just desire to be held, and like ability to receive that pleasure of really being held by my clothes. That was really supportive for me. And I also struggled at that point to wear looser clothing, even though I knew that it could look more flattering on me, because it made me feel like unsafe, because that feeling of being really held in by my clothes was something that I really relied on. And I think about this quite a lot sometimes when people also, are a bit afraid to shift to maybe like looser clothes. Or just experiment with new silhouettes. If you're used to really being held in, I mean, it's nice to push your comfort zone, but also can just be an awareness that it's not just an aesthetic preference that you like things that are tight, but it's actually giving you some sort of that really feel good sensation in your body. So that's the first pleasure I have. The second pleasure I have is like being shielded, and that's like, again, on this protective theme. And here I'm thinking about really oversized clothes, clothes that are really loose, really slouchy, thick, also like shoes with really like thick soles that are really protecting your feet, leather jackets, any jacket that feels like really impermeable, like nothing can get through. Outfits where you just have many layers so your skin is really separated, hats to really like protect the top of your head. And I think like this is also a really big physical, like, I mean, it's a need to be protected, but it's also can feel so like pleasurable in a more subtle way, just this feeling of like like when I'm being hidden, I can like breathe. So I think this is such a big one. I used to really like wearing beanies and other hats because I really made the top of my head feel very like safe, and that was like such a nice feeling. And again, like right now where I am, I don't feel like that is the sensation I really like welcoming into my life. But at the same time, I really found out with like more loose clothes, like I found having looser tops, for example, it feels sometimes can feel a bit like shielded in a really nice way. So if I'm feeling like more vulnerable, this kind of protection can feel really yummy. And I've seen that in this, I think it's Jacquemus boots that really came into style, but now it's everywhere with the really thick soles. And I think, of course, it just feels like cool and you're stomping around. But I think, again, like there's this really element of pleasure of like knowing that like your foot is like, it's so safe. Like your foot has like never been safer in your whole life. Okay, so that was number 2. Number 3 is the pleasure of gentle touch, right? Because who doesn't love gentle touch? And here I'm thinking soft fabrics, right? Just generally, the cashmere, the silk, but like anything that's really soft. Faux fur, like my big faux fur teddy winter jacket. Bare skin, so like anything that really exposes your skin, so you're more likely to kind of touch your skin during the day or be touched by other people. Loose fit, so kind of like a cloth where it just drapes softly over your body. And soft bags, which are really in style now, right? These kind of dumpling bags where you hold it and you're like, it's a bit like squishy and soft. And I mean, human beings, we love soft things. We love touching each other, puppies, kittens, whatever. So again, that's just a really great, like pleasurable sensation to experience that fabric on your skin, or yeah, in the fit. And I think like I definitely like to show more of my skin in like my shirts, for example, or my upper chest, because then I'm more likely to touch myself here, and I feel like that is a really nice for me. So that's definitely a choice I have. And yeah, I'm just a huge fan of like these kind of fluffy jackets, fluffy whatever, because I just, again, like the sensation of like touching is just really nice for me. Okay, the 4th form of pleasure is a feeling movement, right? So it's kind of that movement. Movement is pleasurable in itself. So here I'm thinking about like long skirts that kind of like trail behind you, or skirts with slits. So it's like the material of the skirt kind of moves as you walk or as you sit down. Loose pants, the one that kind of like swish around your legs. Cardigans and kimonos, which kind of like trailing around your body. These like these sleeves, but also like flutter sleeves. So like anything where the fabric really moves separate from you. So there's really this kind of delicate dance between your body and the fabric that you're wearing. I think like that, the reason I think that is so pleasurable is because it really brings you into the pleasure of actually moving your body. So if you move your leg and you really feel the fabric of the skirt shift around that, then it really just connects you to that like sensation of actually movement, which is so beautiful and such just a easy form of like pleasure for most people, that just like gentle kind of, moving your body, like what a joy. The next I have is like grounding. And yeah, so this is obviously such a huge form of physical pleasure for so many people. It's the sensation of like landing in the physical body, landing in the here and now. So the obvious for me here for grounding is really thin-soled shoes, or like the really bare shoes that just can only wear in the summer when the ground is so warm, so you can really just like connect with the earth, or like also really bare shoes, so you can just take them off when you're outside, or you're like really feeling that earth on your feet, the air on your feet. I think also like woven fabrics like linens, I think that they just have naturally kind of a grounding property. Again, like what I mean by grounding in this context is that they're kind of like stable, I guess. So when you feel them on your skin, or when you touch them just through moving or wearing, I guess it just gives you a bit of this feeling of like stability. I guess also like I put gemstones in this category because I know a lot of people are into like crystals or gems, and I think obviously those, if you are connected to that kind of energy, that can be really grounding. And also calming colors. So obviously with your eyes, you're taking in the color of your clothes as you wear it, and I think like if you have any colors that you associate with really being like at peace and being at ease, that is just something that you can kind of catch yourself during the day, and you can take in that sensation of like, it's like just looking and feeling your clothes is like this kind of like exhale. The next category of pleasure I put is like eye candy, and that is a really big favorite of mine. So again, we're coming back into like taking in the elements of our outfit with our eyes. So I wrote shiny earrings, jewelry, sequins, any like sheer fabrics where you're playing with the skin and the fabric, lace that's really like a lot of like to look at, dainty jewelry. I know people love these tiny necklaces or tiny rings. Also like favorite colors, right? So here I'm thinking like, I really want to separate this a bit from like thinking you look good to more that like pleasure of your eye just catches on what you're wearing. So I was talking about this the other day that I really love to wear, like, I have these gym shoes that are covered with like sequins, and I have these like sparkly gym socks because sometimes I just look at my feet while I'm exercising and it's just like this little, I just like to stare at them a bit during my rest between sets, and I'm like, oh, it just catches the eye. And, since we're basically like giant babies, like having something pretty to look for the eyes that really like captivates the eyes, that can be very nice. I'm a big fan of that. I love the shiny stuff. I love sheer things. So yeah, like giving yourself the pleasure of that visual stimulation, and also, yeah, with like favorite colors or any color you're in the mood for that day can be also just, again, to draw in the eye. And then the final form of the pleasure of dressing I came up with is taking space. So sometimes it's like the opposite of being shielded and being held, right? It's like sometimes it's so pleasurable to be like, I am in this body, like I am on this earth, like I am here today, and I am like taking space, and I am like ready, and I am just like being me. And that physical sensation of being present and not having to hide, not having to shield yourself, kind of being exposed, but like making yourself exposed and feeling like confident and like present. Like, again, partially it's like, oh, it's a style choice, but I'm really talking about like the actual like physical sensation of like how nice that feels in the body on those days when you're just like, I'm celebrating being here. So I think some of the ways to really capture that taking space sensation is bright colors. Anything that is kind of like eye-catching, or, it doesn't even necessarily have to be bright, like, red of different shades can be kind of eye-catching. Bold patterns and shapes. So kind of like these psychedelic checkerboard patterns are really in, like big floral shapes, like with like fancy sleeves or fancy shoulders, or like extravagant pants or something. So anything that, again, you feel as you're wearing it that you're like taking space, and it's like this kind of celebration. And also high heels. So I don't like high heels that much. I feel this taking space benefit, especially when I'm wearing like clog shoes, or I really like platforms. So I like I like especially block heels for like aesthetic reasons to finish the outfit. Sometimes I like them, but especially in terms of feeling, for me, like platform shoes or clogs really give me that like taking space, like just physically pleasurable sensation, like I'm stomping around and I got that little bit of an extra boost and I'm even taller, and it's just like my feet are so supported, and I'm like I feel like I'm big in a really positive way. So those are the different forms of pleasure that I came up with connected to specific items of clothing. I'm really curious if you have any other suggestions on the types of pleasure you can receive from your clothes. I'd love to hear about like your experiences and what you find, what the sensations that you are really looking for. And I really think that this topic is just so important because, as I said, I think we focus so much on how we look, whether we are, following the lines or whatever. And then sometimes we can scold ourselves like, well, I know I should be wearing X, Y, and Z because I'm a soft classic, but I just can't let go of this thing. And it's like, well, maybe you can't let go of that thing because you're getting so much out of it physically. And I think just being aware of that and giving it the credit of the role our clothes can really play in our lives, of like giving us these literally physical positive sensations, is something that is so important in your style journey. So yeah, thank you for watching, and let me know what you think.